So, welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I'm Morrow, your storyteller for today. With me I have some more RPG horror stories. Speaking of RPG horror stories, what if we do an RPG horror story reading live and we stream it and talk about it with the chat and everything? I think that'd be kind of cool. Maybe even jump on VR chat, maybe have Mary join in, maybe Mike could join in. Just do like a live horror story reading. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below and I'll get to the first RPG horror story for today. The Lone Wolf Who Felt Left Out. What the title says. To briefly describe this setting, this happened in a Discord campaign that took place in a dystopian future that's a mix of sci-fi and fantasy. So there were demons, energy weapons, cyborgs, match tech, etc. Kind of a science versus magic thing. The members: Gerald, the magic user of the group; Eric, the brawler of the group; Nick, the swordsman of the group; me, the berserker of the group; Xavier, the walking weapon arsenal of the group; Percy, the trickster of the group; Ken, the speedster of the group, and the subject of this post. At first, the campaign consisted of everyone except Ken. We worked towards making our base suitable for the long term, made alliances with NPCs, took on enemies, became vigilantes, etc. A while later, Ken joined the campaign because he thought it looked interesting, and almost right off the bat, we started having problems. I'll say this now, post frequency was the smallest problem of the lot, mainly because we're all in different time zones. But even then, Ken would barely post. Sometimes we would have to skip his turn. Sometimes he would go for days without saying anything despite having enough free time to be active in other channels. The second problem was that his character would barely engage with the other characters, whether it was the rest of the us or NPCs. No matter what our characters are doing, Ken's character is away from the others, doing his own thing. Gerald and Nick are out on patrol. Ken is playing games on his phone. Eric and I are handling criminal group. Ken is shopping for his own things. Xavier and Percy are each taking on a powerful enemy in separate locations and they both need help. Ken is busy listening to K-pop. Lone Wolf trope is a bit tired, but I feel like maybe the two things going on either. Ken really thinks that's his like really cool thing to be like, ooh, I'm an edgy protagonist. I can just do things away from everybody else and still stay mysterious and cool and stuff. Or it's a cry for help. Like unironically, some people that make a Lone Wolf character, they think they make it the most interesting character ever. And they keep themselves like doing mundane activities like playing on the phone, watching K-pop, but secretly they might be hoping that maybe somebody will finally talk to my character. Look at him by himself watching K-pop or playing on his phone. Won't somebody see how deep and mysterious he truly is and interact with him first? Look at him, he's right there, prepared for interaction. When sometimes you just gotta seek out interaction yourself. You can't expect everybody else to always give you the interaction or try to seek out interaction with you specifically. No matter how cool you think your character is, if your character is not doing anything interesting, they're not cool. They're just kind of plain or boring. So at the end of the day, unless you put yourself into the situation, unless you throw yourself to get active or try to, interact with somebody else or NPC or whatever, put your best foot forward. Most people are not gonna recognize that your character is like a cool character because all they're doing is nothing, I guess. I mean, that's what Ken is basically doing. On one hand, yeah, I know we all want to be interacted with at some point, but sometimes I feel like it's just best to put your best foot forward and take the first step for the interaction and then go from there. I mentioned earlier that the campaign takes place in dystopian future. To further elaborate, the plot setting is that our characters suddenly find themselves in said future. Ken's character was freaking out when everyone else's character tried to comfort him by talking about how they were able to get money and survive, and that doesn't have to worry. Ken's character was openly dismissive of everyone and only concerned about how he would be able to get money for his own entertainment. It was explicitly clear that he had no interest in getting a job or contributing to the group's resources for survival. Ah, so Ken is a leech. Kinda, right? What is the term people call again? Girl failure, boy failure? Is that is that what Ken is? A boy failure? And then Ken decided that in addition to being an openly dismissive lone wolf, he wanted to be a leaky faucet. He went to a major news station to offer information about us in exchange for a job, which made the DM do some rolls to see what would happen. Thankfully, the head reporter rejected Ken because they already dealt with a lot of people using the "I'm really close with that new vigilantes" lie to try to get a job. Oh, so not only is he a loser and a boy failure, but also Ken is trying to rat out the rest of the party? Why? Isn't the whole point is to cooperate and work together in this sort of thing? I mean, I don't know, man. If you're running around with a D&D party or really any, party of any game, it doesn't matter if it's D&D or play by post or whatever. But let's say, for example, you got your party, you got your homies, and you guys are supposed to be doing activities together. If one of you rats the rest of you out, well, yeah, of course nobody else is gonna want to interact with your character. You're no longer a broody, mysterious, interesting character that you think you are. Instead, you went from a boring character to straight up a traitor and an a-hole because you're trying to rat out the rest of the party for no reason whatsoever, because you want to try to get a job that way. I thought you didn't want a job, but you will gladly rat somebody out for a job? Seriously, why have this kind of like anti-party interaction in the first place? You're part of the party. You're not supposed to try to screw everybody over? And top it all off, in a discussion channel, Ken would almost only talk about the video games he was playing. The total amount of times he actually said something relevant to the campaign, 2 times. Well, I don't even know if the first case should count, since it was just that he wanted to name his character's high-frequency blade after a streamer. I feel like Ken maybe has other priorities. Maybe they don't want to play this game for the sake of playing this game. They just want to join it for the social experience, but they just want to talk about their favorite video games and their favorite streamer, their favorite Oshi. Another weeb term I learned literally last week. An Oshi, basically your inspiration, your muse, your flame, when it comes to VTubers. The second time Ken contributed to the discussion was when he said he wanted his character to be like Toto from Jujutsu Kaisen with his hallucination thing. His character proceeded to reach max relationship level with said hallucinatory person in less than 100th of a second, while essentially calling everyone else's characters jealous haters because they couldn't see said hallucination. Oh, sorry Ken, yeah, nobody can see your little waifu for life, and therefore you gotta call everybody else jealous because how dare they just not see my wife Coconut from Nekopara. She's clear right there, guys. Come here, Coconut, let's make sweet love together with my beautiful wife because you're all jealous. And it's instead just like hugging a body pillow and stuff, and it's just a crusty body pillow or something. Gross, I know it's gross. It doesn't make a character interesting to get mad at everybody else for not seeing your clear hallucination. You just look insane. I mean, I could talk about like my favorite waifu Coconut from Nekopara till the cows come home. Doesn't mean she is real. She is imaginary. Waifus don't exist. They don't. Waifus and husbandos do not exist. Except Morrow. I'll always be here for you. And remember how I mentioned that the setting of the campaign is that our characters suddenly find themselves in a dystopian future? Ken's character decided that our characters were actually evil people who knew how to return and were trying to keep him trapped in the future. So Ken decided to have the hallucination tell his character that the only way to get back to the present is to get a head start on the sequel, if you know what I mean. And yes, Ken's character tries to go through with it. Your character is no longer interesting. They're just like a sad schizophrenic that's obsessed about the waifu, and the waifus try to turn him against the party and stuff. And you try to screw your party over instead of working with them and just playing along with everybody. Why? You make it this difficult for yourself. Why would anybody else want to associate with your character if that's what your character is doing? Actively screwing everybody over. Also, I don't get the sequel reference. Did somebody get it? Because I don't get it. Is this like a Star Wars? No. What is the sequel reference? I don't get it. I'll say this now. Yes, we tried talking this out with Ken. We asked him where he was going with this whole thing and why he was doing it. Unfortunately, Ken wouldn't answer. It took several days before he finally responded and said that he felt like his character wasn't part of the group. Oh my god. Ken, I wonder why your character's not part of the group. Maybe it's because you're not interacting with the rest of the characters or NPCs and you're choosing to just be by yourself, a little wallflower, shy, edgy, broody wallflower by yourself, playing your video games, watching K-pop, waiting for somebody else to interact with you instead of you interacting with them. Or maybe it's potentially, maybe, just possibly, the idea and the fact that you're trying to screw the party over by ratting it out to local newspapers and journalists or whatever, just to try to get a job. Or the fact that you don't want to get a job to contribute to the party, you just want to be a boy failure, girl failure, whatever the hell, whatever that terminology is. You just want to be a character failure, basically. You just want to be a Ken failure. We'll just go with that. You just want, instead of being Ken, you want to be a Ken failure. And then apparently you decide the best idea is to imagine waifu for life, your favorite waifu that's imaginary right there, and get angry at everybody else for not seeing her, and then let the waifu basically turning into evil version of yourself. I mean, you were an a-hole already, but now you're an evil a-hole that wants to try to screw over the rest of the party for some stupid reason. You think they're like the BBGs of the game for some stupid reason. You're choosing this plot point, Ken. You have no right to complain. My characters, I feel like they fit in. I wonder what would happen. Why did the rest of the party not make my character feel fit in? Probably because you're making your character seem like the most dislikable person in general. Why would they want to associate with your character? It doesn't make any sense. Ken, why don't you make a better character, please? I literally had multiple events trying to get him to be part of the group, and that he didn't feel engaged with the campaign. Well, maybe that wouldn't happen if he didn't play a lone wolf who actively ignored and shrugged off other people while looking down on them. We explained to him that if he wanted to leave the campaign, he didn't need to force some event to kill off his character, and that he just had to say that he wanted to leave. Ken promptly responded with a "screw this, I'm out" message and left the server. You know what? Good riddance in this situation. I know it sounds kind of mean to say, but Ken clearly is the problem. Even though you guys try to talk to Ken to try to get him to understand, get him to interact, clearly he doesn't want to have a conversation. He wants things just done for him for some reason. And instead of being like, yeah, sorry guys, if Ham's gonna leave, just says, "screw this, I'm out," like they're trying to save face or something. Or like, you know, they're the ones that are fed up with everything instead of you guys being fed up with Ken's behavior. Like, this is just madness. This is insanity. Ken, if you're out there, if you watch this in some ether out there, or if you recognize this story whatsoever, please stop being a lone wolf. It doesn't work out. It's not as cool as you think it is. Nobody finds your character cool, mysterious, and approachable in any capacity. Maybe only you find your character the most interesting character in the world. But if your character acts like a wallflower that does nothing, everybody's going to interpret him as a wallflower that does nothing. And when you try to go against the party, I don't think your party is going to be happy that you're going against the party. I don't think many parties are cool with that sort of thing. Just letting you know. Just a little bit friendly advice for the future. Anyway, let's get to the next story for today. AITA for stopping a player DM romance on the table. On the table or at the table? Because those are two different things. On the table, I'm imagining just your player and DM would just like straight up doing it, straight up boning at the table. Or is it at the table? Because those are two different things. This is gonna be a long one and probably not worded so good, but I'll try my best. Me, 20 female, my partner 23 non-binary, and a bunch of other friends have been playing at a D&D table for almost a year now. The DM, 18 male, is my best friend, and I've known him since the day he was born. Before we started playing, I talked to my partner about wanting to romance their character in-game. They're playing a tiefling wizard, and I an air genasi ranger, for the record. They agreed since they enjoyed romance RP and D&D. I then expressed to them a real difficulty I had with seeing them flirt with other people at the table. I'd said I'd feel bad even though I shouldn't, and apologized about it since that limits RP. They said it was okay and they wouldn't romance anyone. The campaign goes on without many problems. My character and theirs are having their little enemies to lovers arc, as requested by my partner, enter the DMPC. About halfway into the campaign so far, the DM introduced the DMPC. Before doing so, he came to talk to me about it because he was very self-conscious about doing it, but he was feeling extremely burnt out from not being able to play since no one else DMs in that table, and I told him to do it. It couldn't be that bad and it'd make him feel better. Also, it's not a serious table, we're all amongst friends and no one would really mind. And so he did. He introduced a Dragonborn Astral Self Monk and the character was pretty nice. Everyone enjoyed his appearance into the party and session went on as usual. I don't mind if somebody has a DMPC personally, like as a DM, as a player, just in general, as somebody who just enjoys D&D, I don't really mind DMs that have a DMPC as long as it's done in such a way where it benefits the party and it helps fill up some sort of a gap or reason for the DMPC to be there. Because if the DM is just playing a DMPC like as a player character just so they can play as a player character in a game that they're also DMing, that could be a little bit of a problem, because if the purpose is to add something to the party and add something to the story, that's one thing. But if the DM just craves to be able to play as a player, but they're also playing as a DM at the same time, I think that's not exactly the best or reasoning out there. If, let's say, for example, you're adding a DMPC because your party is full of tanks and DPS and you don't really have a healer or support, that's one thing. You're bringing something else the party desperately needs. Maybe the party is full of marshals. They don't have a spellcaster that can do things like detect traps or, you know, detect magic or detect poison and stuff, or detect good and evil. Things of that nature, right? Things that will help the party greatly in some sort of supportive case or some sort of supportive way. Or let's say you have a party full of casters and, you know, rogues maybe, or like rogue and a bard, but nobody's really the frontliner or a tank, and you give them some sort of a meat sack or some sort of a bullet sponge or attack sponge or hit sponge that can basically take a lot of the hits if needed, but not going to be there to save their ass all the time, only if they use it properly, you know? That sort of thing can be fine because it gives a purpose for the character to be there. Maybe it's a very important character that has something to do with the current storyline, like maybe dealing with tieflings or celestials or undead. Basically giving things like, oh, I don't know, speak with the dead on occasion here and there. They're dealing with like crypts and graves and such, learn information. But when the DM is introducing a player character, a DMPC in a situation because they feel left out and they want to play a player character instead of DMing, I don't think that's a good way to do things, because yes, on one hand they can satisfy their own selfish desire to want to play, but I think that's best satisfied if you find a different group to play a player character in. campaign, because it will truly not feel like you're playing as a player character. You're kind of gonna be feeling like, do I play the DM role here? Do I want to play as a player role? And it just becomes like a big juggle fest of you trying to balance out having fun as a player and having fun as a DM. I'm sure the tables that can do it and, you know, can be just completely fine with that. Maybe this table's completely fine with it too, but I could be wrong in this situation, but these are just my 2 copper pieces. Let's continue. After some development, my character multiclassed into Cleric. She was always devoted to Bahamut and finally grabbed a level that would cause problems considering my partner's character had a little crow-shaped devil on her shoulder the entire campaign. And eventually, and quite recently, she made a deal with it, grabbing a level in Warlock. Our characters had a big fight, and with now both of them sad, my partner's character went to talk to the DMPC. And that's when it happened. They were talking. It was pretty good RPCing, but then the DMPC flirted with my partner's character. That already made me launch a look on the DM's way that said, please stop. Remember, the guy's my best friend, and he knew I wouldn't like that. And then my partner made her character kiss the DMPC. Keep in mind that I told before the campaign started to them very explicitly that I wouldn't feel comfortable with them flirting with someone else at the table, and reiterated multiple times throughout the game. The DMPC rejected her at first to my relief, but the relief was short-lived as he went back on it, and the DMPC and my partner's character flirted more and eventually had a fade to black sex scene. Well, have you and your partner considered just talking it out outside of the table prior to this? Be like, hey, so I'm planning to take a class in Warlock. Ooh, I'm planning to take a class in Cleric. Oh, that's gonna be a fun dynamic. Do you want to talk about how we're gonna be interacting and playing that off? Sure thing. Do you guys not talk about it? Do people not talk about this sort of thing? You would think that the couples, like, they, you know, playing together would kind of talk about this sort of thing. I don't know. Like, I have some couples that play with me on occasion, but I'm pretty sure they talk about their characters and character interactions. At least I encourage it. I think it's kind of important, especially if you're gonna have characters supposed to mesh well together. It might be good to kind of figure out the dynamic and how you want to play it off and stuff like that, or at least agree like, okay, that's gonna be a fun little banter. Let's get into the banter scene right then and there. It seems a little bit strange that your partner, knowing that you don't like the flirt, that when you it's not even, so first of all, let's just clarify. It's not even that flirting like out of game, like flirting, you know, actual cheating and stuff like that. It's flirting in character that you don't like, that you put a boundary to. On one hand, it's not cheating, because at the end of the day, it's just in-character stuff. And on the other hand, you did make your boundaries pretty clear, and it seems like your partner respected it, and your DM respected it. So it seems a little bit weird that they would just do this specifically at the table right in front of you. I think it's a little bit strange. The fact that it's not even was prompted or anything. If, let's say, for example, you never had a conversation with your DM or with your partner about this sort of thing, then it would be one thing, because like, oh, well, it's a surprise, they had no idea, and going from there. But your partner knows this. They specifically agreed, okay, I'm not gonna flirt with anybody else at the table. At the same time, we also gotta consider the fact that they're not flirting like in person. They're not flirting person to person. They're just in character doing this. Yeah, maybe a little bit weird, maybe crossing some of your boundaries and stuff for sure, maybe crossing some of your into your uncomfortable territory, but at the end of the day, they're not like actually flirting. It's just the characters flirting in character. Let's continue reading this, but I do have a couple more things I want to say. After that happened, I was extremely devastated, yet I stayed on the table with my shocked and sad expression, but the DM seemed proud of his roleplay scene and my partner seeming glad about it. Again, both knew I wouldn't feel comfortable about it. After the session was over, the DM noticed I was sad, texted me asking if that hurt me. I said yes. He apologized and said he'd fix it. Also talked to my partner about it on the way home, and they also apologized. Story doesn't end though, cause my partner's therapist now started insisting they should go back and tell me it's just a game, cause it's a matter of self-respect, even though my partner really didn't mind the romance RP with the DMPC, and neither did my DM. In fact, he regrets it bitterly. Either way, that caused us to fight over it, and my partner's therapist keeps insisting on it, even though the situation was already solved in-game by this point. With all that being said, am I the a-hole for stopping this RP situation? You know, this is a difficult one for me, because on one hand, yes, it's just a game. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter, because if, let's say, for example, this becomes like a pattern where like your partner and your DM are actually flirting IRL, and you get like really weird, suspicious text messages between them, and like they have like little getaways together, yeah, I think that's definitely a problem, because at that point it becomes, you know, the game stuff bleeds out of game, and if it bleeds out of game, that's 100% an issue, 100%. But if it's in game, I mean, at the end of the day, it is a game. Just to put in perspective, let's say, for example, it was me playing as Morrow and my buddy Micah playing his character Micah, and our characters went to the Feywild, got really drunk, went and drunk some really incredible new booze out there that's really Feywildian and crazy, and we just looked at each other. You know how when somebody looks at like a hallucination when they're drunk and look really pretty, and we started flirting with each other? Let's say, for example, that happened, and Micah's wife got really mad at me and Micah because our characters flirted, even though it's a bit that we're doing in-game. I would say, yeah, that would be quite an overreaction because we're clearly doing a bit in-game, and we're all very much aware of it, and we're just literally goofing around, just role-playing in character, and there's clearly nothing going on there. Like, I know the guy, he is like a brother to me. I'm not gonna start flirting with him for no reason IRL. If we're doing it in character, it's only because we're doing for a bit in character, because we know each other really well, we know how to do bits together, we know how to just goof around together, and we're doing it for the sake of a bit. On the other hand, you did talk to your partner beforehand about the specific boundaries, and clearly this is a sensitive issue to you, so it kind of feels a little bit weird that your partner would just like say, okay, I'm not gonna do it, and then go, you know, do the opposite and actually do something completely opposite entirely. I personally feel like you probably shouldn't take it so seriously. If it is indeed in roleplay, it's indeed in roleplay. You might need to just, you know, let it go, let your hair down, not worry about it so much, because I feel like if you weren't about in-game roleplay stuff going on like this, and that's a problem, I feel like maybe you should probably talk to somebody about this, because it sounds like you have a really bad insecurity in something that is fictional, something that's not real, even though clearly it's not there. And I'm not saying it to be insulting, I'm saying like legit, maybe it's some sort of an issue or insecurity that needs to be resolved within yourself before it needs to be resolved with anybody else at all. Potentially. Maybe. On the other hand, if this still irks you regardless what, it feels a little bit strange that your partner would just be like, okay, I'm not gonna do it, but then clearly do it with a DMPC that your DM is running and stuff. So I guess if you wanted to ask him, you could probably ask him why did they do that, just to see what the thoughts are. Maybe they were like, yeah, for fun, for kicks and giggles, who knows. Personally, I feel like it's not that big of a deal. At the end of the day, if it's in-game roleplay, it's just in-game roleplay. I think you might be taking this a little bit too seriously, but that's just me. Comments, let me know what you think about this, because I feel like this is going to be a very polarizing thing. I feel like we're going to have people in two camps like, no, she's not overreacting, and yes, she is overreacting. I don't know. What are your thoughts in the comments below? I would love to see what you guys have to say about this story. And with that, that's going to be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales Tomorrow. Bye-bye.